There's things that I can't talk about, I guess is the best way to explain it. And the conversations have been interesting in a sense of like there are a lot of foreign powers who are in, because his world is this world of seeing what comes in, we'll call it. And he's like, there are a lot of foreign powers, other countries purposely dripping insight and information into our social feeds. And we're actively trying to stop it, but it's happening. So things that we're seeing and things that are being put out there aren't even being put out by Americans, being put out by other countries trying to turn Americans on Americans. You know, like it's a very interesting. So what do we know is real? What's not real? What's stoking the flame? It's almost like a big conspiracy at the same time, but it's not, because I know that certain things exist, like systemic racism exists and racism I've experienced, right? So, dude, it is a fireball right now. It is, and I guess the best way to explain it is there's an emotional high everybody's on right now. Anger is intoxicating. It's an emotional high. And when emotions are high, intelligence is low. We are not cognitively and consciously thinking about things that are being said. We just act. And so you got a lot of people who are acting because they're oppressed, and a lot of people who are acting because they're starting to feel oppression. Right? Police officers are starting to feel oppression. It's a different world. And so you have people acting on different sides, and nobody's going to win because you're not going to convince the other side. So it's like now you're going to sit back and it's like try to get someone to listen because you're yelling at them, and no one's listening when you're yelling at them. So I think when the emotion subsides, as long as we can stay off of the craziness, if the media helps us change a little bit of the narrative and calm people down, damn it, I think we can get to a space of having discussions, because there's already legislature moving forward, which is good, but we need more, and we need more deep conversations on each side. Like we need deep, honest, open ownership conversations on white America's side about really what's going on in society, not what data will show you. Because nobody taking data for racism. You know what I mean? Like there's nobody like that was racist, checkbox. Like it's not happening. It shows up in different numbers, right? So someone's got to own up there. But then Black America, we got to own up and be like, all right, like we really got to start spending more time in a position of trying to better ourselves to enter this world, so that if we're given opportunities, we're in positions to take advantage of them. It's going to change. It's going to mean changing the culture, changing what we put on a pedestal, right? There's going to be certain things that we need to have our younger generations aspire to that we didn't aspire to. And so there's there's a lot of conversation to have on it. I ramble in thought and I go over the place, but I'm not neutral. And I'm just trying to make the most. There's also one thing I think people really should try to do is try to be able to entertain an idea without accepting it, because that's a very helpful ability to find out what's really the opposite person's side. But on top of that is be able to be wrong. Like I can entertain an idea and then maybe I do accept it, but accepting it's hard because it means that I might have been wrong, right? And then when you can do that as a parent or in a marriage, lo and behold, the relationships blossom, right? So if we want to have the same thing for society, we got to have that in society. People have got to own like, that was wrong. All right, what do I do now? And I think if we can do that together, like it'll be beautiful. But we're in the hard part of change, man. We're not even to the hard. Like I talk about, it's not even my idea, but Robin Sharma says change is usually hard in the beginning, ugly in the middle, and beautiful at the end. And we're right now in hard, right? We're in the space of like it's hard conversations, hard realizations. I don't even think we're in ugly yet. It may look ugly. It may look like there's a lot going on, but I don't think, Doug, we're in ugly yet. Like there's going to be more. Like it's going to be interesting, because now you have police that are leaving and pretty much leaving their jobs, resigning, which means less police officers to police, which means what happens? Do we have more crime? Is there like it's a deeper conversation? Dude, I don't know. It's going to get ugly. Like, and I just don't know how or where. But I'm trying, like you said in the beginning, trying to keep my head in a space of being happy and being joyful for what I do have. I don't accept all the ideas that I hear, but I do entertain them. And then I have deep conversation with my family, and I live my life.
Yeah, I think you're right on so many levels that it's going to get worse before it gets any better. I think,
Fortunately.
right? And I think the most important thing people can do is just kind of listen, right, and show empathy, and ask questions, right? And if they don't understand something, to just ask a question. And I can only speak from my experience. I was incarcerated and I saw a lot. It opened my eyes a lot. Let's just say when I started immersing myself in the culture of the Black community and people who, were in the inner cities, and there was a lot of poverty and there's a lot of drugs, and I started selling drugs, to where I started to understand the the opportunity. I started to understand like how things are, and that like it's a deeper issue than just the drugs. It's a thing that just the opportunity just isn't the same. When I went to jail, you know, I had gotten busted with a bunch of drugs, and I was a convicted felon, and I got 90 days, right? And there was guys in there who were getting busted with a little bit of crack who got years. And they're looking at me, and I'm like, you know, so I started to really understand a bit more, I guess, right, about it. And then I started volunteering and doing some volunteer work in some homeless shelters and down, and just asking questions and being like, hey, like, why this, why that? What would you like to see change? And I think a lot of from what I understand, is more just being able to understand and listening and not shutting down ideas. And I think the more we can do that, just as, I mean, as a society, not even just with this issue here, anything else we're dealing with, it can only result in positive, because you're right. You know, there's not all cops are bad, right?
No.
Just not everybody's racist. Not like everybody. It's like, I think what the problem we run into is we put people into buckets and assume just because one person did something, everyone's like that. Yeah. I think it just makes the problem even worse than it needs to be, instead of us coming together. And you're right, the media loves to, you know, put us on. Yeah, it's like it's like you can almost tell if you put on CNN what they're going to show, and Fox News what they're going to show. Like I remember I was sitting with my grandparents, and I was like, watch, I'm going to put on Fox News, and they're going to talk about how violent these protests are. Put on Fox News, sure enough, violent protests they were talking about. They were showing all the bad stuff, right, of their base, for their base. And then I put on CNN, it was like showing the peace and I'm like, so it just shows that the media is so divisive, and they control the narrative. I remember Kevin Hart came out, and I just love what he said. He's like, all right, media, like, you control the narrative. Like, let's keep the narrative what it needs to be. And I think we just need to come together.
Yeah, that'd be nice. That's not doesn't pay pockets though. That's the problem.
Oh, I know.
You know what it is? Because here's the problem too, is if there wasn't anything going on in the news would have nothing to show, right? So there's certain things that weren't being done, and they have nothing to spin. And there is the argument of, Black America, we have more crime. And I'm like, yeah, we do have more crime. And that's unfortunate. It is that Black Americans account for, I think there's two things to tie into it, though. One, because Black Americans commit more crimes, there's more of a focus on Black Americans committing crime, right? There just is. So the numbers are going to go up because you're going to see that. Because you're looking for it, because that's what you commonly are going to associate it with, right? And then you also have the aspect that's unfortunate. How do they become criminals? It would be illogical to think that the majority of Black Americans criminals because we're predestined to be criminals. We're genetically built. It's not. It's a system that was designed to keep certain people in poverty. And when you put certain people, if you put dogs in a kennel for too long, they're going to start eating each other, right? It's just going to happen. It's just, they're going to get hungry. They're going to want. And we've been hungry and wanting for a while. We'll call it societies of people. So what happens is, like, it's like I don't know how to explain it. Society created the cancer that they hate. We'll call it that, right? So it's like you created this. You didn't let us have schools that would educate us. So then what happened is you have a bunch of people through generations that, like, it's part of the identity to be hardened, to not smile, to take what's mine and do what's mine. It's part of the identity. It's hard to change anyone's identity. You're seeing America have to do it now, and it's troublesome. Because I heard a statement that was interesting is racism is so American that to attack racism, people think you're attacking America. Like, it's so ingrained that there's a separation and this difference that it's a really interesting take on our society as a whole. And so there's a system put in place to keep a certain person or people down, and then all of a sudden they become criminals accidentally. Like, no, like something's happened. The schools weren't there. The jobs weren't there. The opportunities weren't there. It's why we had to have affirmative action and people doing things. There's no representation of power above us that look like us. So there's a system in place that you let these people create systems where we couldn't buy a house. Redlining existed, right? And I love this one. People say, well, the culture just is a difficult culture. And like, yeah, well, Black America was trying to make a great culture. And then in 1921, people go to like a place like Tulsa, Oklahoma, where we were just doing our thing and we were building businesses and great, but then white America didn't like that from that area, so they come and burn the place to the ground. So now you got these people that are angry and pissed, and they're scared to build something new because it might get burned down, I might get killed. 3,000 people die and nobody gets charged for anything, right? So it's like so at this certain points, like also people that this recidivism rate, right? I go in and I come back out and I go back in the prison system again. If I go into the prison system because either I'm targeted or because I didn't have environment, my identity is tied to this, you know, this culture of, you know, I'm a criminal because my people didn't get a chance to rise, then like I come out and it's hard to completely change that persona of a person. They go back to an environment that is what put them in the first place. So now
Right.
like so it's like it's tough because here's the thing is I think for Black America to really rise, we do all have to come out and say, man, we got to stop being at 75% of the crime rate. But it's going to be really hard because where's the hope to change that? And until when we have these conversations we're having now, which is great, I don't think that the opportunity was there prior to. I don't think society was giving Black people a chance to kind of come out. And so now we have this chance where it's like, all right, if we're going to get an opportunity, we really got to climb out, which means we have to do more work than we want to do or used to doing or even know how to do. And so there's going to be the side that needs to be pushing past discomfort on both ends.
Well,
White
yeah.
America, you know, non-Black America's really got to let us in, and then Black America's got to step up and like, let's go to work.
Yeah, and I think these conversations, you're right, are not easy because, like you said at the beginning, everyone's like, well, what do I say? How do I say it? Am I using the right words? Am I my facts right? And I think at the end of the day, it's just having open-ended conversations, asking questions. I mean, and to your point, I remember I was volunteering in a local detention center last year, and there was a group of kids that were in there. One of the kids had just ran over and killed a police officer the year prior. He was like 16 or 17 years old. And I remember like we were talking to them and we were asking them questions. And he was like, you know, what motivation do I have? Like the houses are boarded up. My mom's, you know, barely able to put food on the table. My dad's not in the picture. And there's rats crawling all over the city. Like, and he's like, well, what motivation? Like when you walk outside, like that's my life. And what motivation? And I think you're right. You know, it's like nobody sees that. People all of a sudden assume that they're just criminals. People are going to be criminals at birth. And it's like, people don't wake up and like, I'm going to go rob a bank when I'm 9 years old. No, it's not like that.
None
And
at all. If you have things that are like, you got to think, what's the shortest path to a dream for people?
right.
If I'm in America where my life is joyous and I have money and I have cool schools, like my shortest path is like I enjoy school. I'm safe at school and I can get a degree and I can go to college and I can get a good job I love. But if I'm in the shortest path to success, if I am scared to go to school and the schools are overpopulated or it sucks, or you know, on the way to school I'm getting, you know, sold drugs, or on the way home there's no after school programs, no sports in my town. What's the shortest path to getting any kind of success? Well, it's what you've seen other people do, which is sell drugs, join a gang to feel accepted. Like there's just a lot. If you think about it, if you got a bunch of people in jail that are dads that are African American, then you aren't going to have dads that are African American at home. So now you're recycling the same problem over and over. So it's like, all right, well, my dad was in jail, so I don't know what to do. And then sure enough, he has a kid, and then now he's in jail, and that kid's dad was in jail. And this is a process. So we've had this system that, like I like when somebody said before, it wasn't my idea, but someone said the system isn't broken; it's working perfectly. And that's the problem we're in. And so the system does have to be adjusted. I don't know how. I don't even know the solution, but I do know it's going to be a lot of work on both sides of the table to get some hard ownership, some hard work, and like put this thing together over the next, you know, couple generations.
Yeah, I remember. I agree. And somebody asked me, it's like not that I'm like um, the answer to everything, but somebody asked me like, you know, Doug, if you were president, what would you do? Somebody put me on the spot, and I'm like, well, I don't have all the answers, but from the top of my head, I would somehow fix the school systems, you know, and make sure that there's the city school systems or wherever is up to par with everybody else. I would make sure that there's like some vocational centers, so for these kids who maybe don't have the same opportunities to have their parents maybe aren't together, maybe their dad's in jail or whatever the case may be, to be able to have opportunities to go to learn how to like fill out a job resume and how to use a cell, like things that maybe they're not taught
At all.
give them a similar opportunity that somebody who maybe was born in the suburbs with better opportunities had. Obviously healthcare for them, right? And having like a big brother or big sister program, I think, for these kids who, and I know you the only reason I know that because I know this is something you had to do, right? When you left, I remember you telling your mom you didn't want to live with her anymore.
Yeah.
And obviously you went through a bit more trauma after that, but having these kids have an option to be like, you know what, like I want to go be raised by this X, Y, and Z family so I can get out and have a chance to live a different life. And
Mhm.
these are just some of my ideas. I don't know. Am I right? I don't know. Like,
No,
but
no one knows who's right. There's no right, because what's also problematic is you can put something in front of somebody and they may not want to take it for whatever
right.
reason, right? Like, I think one of the solutions is schools 100%, but then I
Yeah.
always think of like, what's the day-to-day living experience for a lot of these people in the inner cities that are in poverty, that are in the ghettos, and it's like, even if I drop down this, fun and amazing program that's in the city, it could take one group of bad kids who they just don't care to go and burn the place down and be, like punk the kids that are trying to go get an education. Like, there's that still culture of the kids who are in the hood and the ghetto. Like, they look at you, and when you're trying to do good, it's a reflection of I'm not doing good, so it turns into an anger that wants to attack you and see you. I'm out here in the Bay Area, and whenever I was in college, one of the guys that went to De La Salle, he went to live with me for a little bit, right? So he's living with me, and he's coming down, and he went to visit some people back home, and in Richmond. And just because he had done well, people wanted him dead, and they killed him in the streets. So it's like it's TK, Terrence Kelly, and it's like sucks, because now you have like this cultured environment that even when some are trying to climb, there's some that are stuck in it and they don't see the hope, so they don't want you to rise either. So they'll take you down. That's why you have a lot of black on black crime. There's part of it's the criminal aspect, but there's also the aspect of like, no, if I'm not going to be able to get that, you don't get it either. And there's this anger. But I think if we can have programs where these people who are in those positions are like, man, like I see this guy doing well, like, and we tell him like, yeah, you can too. Like, come to this program, come do this, fund those kind of things. You move the needle. And I think that's one of the parts that I think society has to do. It's not just, schools. Schools are a good part of it, but we need to provide stuff that's extracurricular. Like,
Yeah.
the girls and boys programs, good, but are there sports? Is there chess? Is there volleyball? Is there technology? Is there engineering? These kids are witty. Think about how crafty they can be to commit half the crimes they do. Like, imagine, like, I was a little criminal kind of kid back in the day too, man. Like, what if you give me put me in a position to use that in a great way? I'm benefiting society like crazy, but you don't have the opportunities. And when you don't have the opportunities, you have a weight of feeling less than, and you get angry, and then now you go and you do stuff that's not the greatest. So there's got to be more funding, and I'm talking like a lot, not reparations. I saw that come through reparations. I don't think it's reparations. I think it's funding to help the society change the culture of Black America. Not my culture in the sense of like, I love my black skin and I'm going to do my thing, but I'm talking about more of like the culture of what is seen as a high level to achieve, which would be like, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, even if I grew up in the inner city. It shouldn't be. I don't like the fact that we still have articles that are sensationalizing the one kid who made it out of this area and became a doctor. Like, you don't see it for white America or Asian America. Like, you see it for one population. Like, we got to stop having that sensationalized. It needs to be kind of a norm. And I think when we can get to the point of funding programs, funding these opportunities, and then the aspect of, the we'll call it the bias in the background. I don't know the word as I'm looking for. It's not overt racism, but I can't think of the word. But it's more of like, I have a bias, like a racial bias towards certain people that look a certain way, right? That's got to be the internal work a lot of people who are not black have to accept. Like, they're going to talk a certain way and act a certain way, listen to a certain kind of music, a certain things food they eat. But you can't say it's all bad. Like, it's just their culture. And so accept those things, and you be able to find that at the end of the day, empowering people. Here's the one thing I looked for my upbringing in foster care is, a smooth sea makes not a skilled sailor. Difficulty makes me strong and witty and able to figure out problems. So the difficulty that Black America has been experiencing, we've got some rigor inside of us and some grit that if you spin that and point it in the right direction, damn it, we will make this society amazing. Like, Black culture is already pervasive in everything from music to fashion to TV, everything. It's there. So it's like, take the other parts too. Don't just take the stuff that you can monetize. Take the rest of it and see that we're people that can do some damn cool things given these opportunities. And so I think we just need more opportunities.
Yeah, and I agree, and I think changing the culture, like you said, is something that I think is important in creating more opportunities and giving these kids the ability to have like extracurricular thing, like you said, sports, something to channel their anger and pain into something positive, just like anything else, no matter who you are, right? We all need that.
Yeah.
And I'm in the city, Baltimore City, like a little bit in the suburbs, and there's so much corruption of like our last mayor, I think, went to jail. And then like one of the ladies who was on the ballot this year, the last time she was mayor, like 3 or 4 years ago, Sheila Dixon got arrested for stealing gift cards from the poor. And it's like, how are we allowing people to continue to run for office that are controlling the city, that are behaving in this manner, and making it like it's okay? And like, because that's, at the end of the day, these are the decision makers, and
Yeah.
we have to stop that too, because I've been really blessed, I think, man, like that I grew up in a very rural area where there wasn't a lot of diversity. Everybody was white,
Yeah.
And when I started to sell drugs and get down in the cities, and then when I went to jail, I obviously learned a lot. And I think the last thing I'll say is, if we can all come together, this is what I'm hearing from you, and just gaining more understanding and paying attention more to, and listening and having empathy. And maybe I don't agree with your idea, but still being able to show love and understanding, and having a tough conversation without, me ripping your head off or you ripping my head off, right? That's where I think change is going to happen, because now we're coming closer together instead of just pushing each other further away. And that's what I think is happening a lot right now. Is I think obviously there's a lot of people that want everybody knows there needs to be some sort of change. Something has to change.
Yeah.
I would hope deep down, whether they want to admit it or not, people know that there needs to be some sort of change.
Yeah.
And right now, it's just like everyone just is trying. It seems like there's a lot of people who are just trying to be right.
Yeah, and people, it's trying to be right. It's trying to attack, and it's trying not to be attacked. Again, we're in an emotional space, and while it's emotional, the logic won't come in to start making progress yet, and that's okay. Like it's think about, you get in a fight with somebody. Sometimes women just need space. Just give me some space, and then we'll have a conversation, right? And that's kind of what I think society needs to do, because eventually you get taxed emotionally. You will get taxed. It's overwhelming to read it all, and eventually it's like, all right, breathe. Now what do we do? So right now, I'm all for America doing what they're doing, man. Whether it's looting and rioting, I wouldn't do it myself, but I'm not going to condemn them.
No, I'm not either.
People are doing what they're doing, man. It's the language of the oppressed people, and they can't communicate. They're pissed off, like they do stuff that you'll listen to. So this is what happened, right? So right or wrong, it's happening, but there'll be a point in time, I think, when society starts to like, all right, what does it look like to fix this? And there's going to be more corruption. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be part of the process. But you're never going to fully remove that. It's never going to be 100% some oasis area. Like, let's be honest, but it can be 1,000% better than it is right now. So now we're in the beginning throes of this. This is not going to happen. I see it's happening over the next like 30, 40 years, like we're not going to have all of a sudden, like in a couple of years, this thing is like beautiful. Like it's not, we're talking time. So I'm like, how do I set this stuff up in my life and my world so that my great grandkids are like, man, my great grandfather lived in a world that doesn't make any sense. Like that doesn't, it's just weird. Like that's what I want. I want it to be so vastly better that people look at this time like that was just weird.
Yeah. Yeah. And I saw somebody chime in. This is the last thing I say, and I got to jump off. And I know you got to kind of go.
I do too. Yeah.
Is role models. Yeah. I think it's 100%. And that's why I love you, Anthony. And what you're doing is because you're a role model, man. You've been oppressed. You've been in a position where you've had everything thrown at you, and you've taken it and kind of made your way out. But also you have the level of empathy and heart for those that haven't made it out yet.
Yeah.
Right. And you don't have like you don't think you're above everybody else just because you've made it out. And I
see that a lot. That sucks. I see a lot of Black Americans who have done something successful just turning on their people, because it's almost like to protect the whiteness of their blackness. It's weird.
Well, like Ben Carson, I respect Ben Carson. Like I guess for him as a brain surgeon, but obviously what I'm against is like he brags about how he made it out and he made it out and he made it out. Like, how smart you have to be a brain surgeon, right? Yeah. Like, so obviously he was wired a little bit different, and not everyone. He's like the less than 1%. So like, I don't agree with that.
No, I don't either. That's the thing, is you can't just go, well, you have opportunities. It's like, yeah, but some don't see it. Some are told their entire life they don't exist. And then some, they look at it and they don't have the emotional wherewithal to be able to pursue it. So it's not that there's anything wrong with them. They just didn't have the things they needed. So I think there's a lot of space. But yeah, it's difficult to see those who are in Black positions because you got to realize when they're saying you just got to work, they're protecting their ego and their identity. Um, and it's like, okay, I get it. Like, yeah, you had to work, I had to work, but I'm not going to sit here and say I had to work. You can too. Like, that's just unrealistic. It's like, that's hard because everybody's built differently. And so, as opposed to, if you think about someone who teaches, sometimes the worst teachers are those who just have it naturally because they don't know why they're better. When I trained athletes, I had to spend time teaching them how to move. That wasn't normal to me. I'd never done it. I just did this thing. And so how do you teach something that you really don't fully understand? And so I think in a lot of the Black Americans that are doing well, they're trying to say, well, I did it because they can't comprehend the fact that might have been more natural for you. Some people need more help. It's not just a work thing. It's more to it. And so if you can have some empathy and compassion for humanity and the fact that we're not all built the same, you can go back and provide a lot more insight and help to those by teaching them how to do things that you may have to learn how to teach. I do have a podcast I got to get to now.
Yeah, me too. So yeah, I mean, dude, this has been awesome. We'll catch up soon.
All right.
I love you, man. Love what you're doing.
You too, bro. Anything you need, let me know.
Got you. You too.
All right. Later.
See you.